there's a tie-in here to AI's impact on jobs that I was wondering if you would just kind of walk us through a couple things that you've seen that paint kind of a bigger picture here of the implications.
Yeah, I'm really starting to think I should have gotten that drink before we started doing this today. Okay, so I honestly debated going into this because I feel like this has already been pretty heavy. If you need to like pause and go like take a break, I understand. Come back to this one. So so yesterday, as I was flying home, I saw a clip from the latest Dwarkesh podcast. And so Dwarkesh is like he does these amazing interviews, but they tend to be really technical. We've talked about Dwarkesh a number of times. Um, I love his stuff. You just got to be ready to be like 3 hours of overwhelmed. I'm hitting you with like 30 minutes here, but like for 3 hours, your mind is just going to explode. Um, but he has now had these two guys on from Anthropic, Sholto Douglas and Trenton Bricken. They're great. Like they're awesome to listen to. Sholto focuses on scaling reinforcement learning, and Trenton researches mechanistic interpretability at Anthropic, which is the study of trying to like understand how these models work and what they're thinking and why they do things. So these dudes know their stuff. Um, so in in this interview, I'm just going to read this excerpt. Sholto, I do think it's worth pressing on that future, referring to the impact of AGI and jobs and stuff. There's this whole spectrum of crazy futures, but the one that I feel we're almost guaranteed to get, and he said this is a strong statement to make, is one where at the very least you get a drop in white collar worker at some point in the next 5 years. I think it's very likely in 2, but it seems almost overdetermined in 5. On the grand scheme of things, those are kind of irrelevant time frames. It's the same either way. So then Trenton says, this is a little bit later on, yeah, just to make it explicit, we've been touching on it here. Even if AI progress totally stalls, you think that models are really spiky and they don't have general intelligence. So he's saying like that's where we're at today. Like we can just shut it off. He said it's so economically valuable and sufficiently easy to collect data on all of these different jobs, these white collar jobs, such that Sholto's point, we should expect to see them automated within 5 years, even if you need to hand spoon every single task into the model. So what he's saying is there's such motivation to train these models to do people's jobs that even if you have to go through massive projects to train it on specific jobs, it's worth it if you're the one building the companies. So then Sholto says it's economically worthwhile to do so, even if algorithmic progress stalls out and we just never figure out how to keep progress going, which I don't think is the case. That hasn't stalled out yet. It seems to be going great. This is still Sholto. He said the current suite of algorithms are sufficient to automate white collar work, provided you have enough of the right kinds of data. Compared to the total addressable market of salaries for all those kinds of work, it is so trivially worthwhile. So the whole point he's making is if you think about, so if you're doing a startup, you always look at like total addressable market. If you're building marketing campaigns, launching new products, total addressable market, like what is the total market we could do if we sell something? So what they're saying is you take like a field like accounting and you say, oh man, there's $200 billion in salary every year spent in the United States on accounting. If we could build a product that automates accountants as a big market,
Mm.
like that's $1 trillion company, maybe. Let's go do that. That's the point they're making is the models as they exist today, which is the point I've been trying to make to everyone, as they exist today, if you just shut them off and you took 4.0 and Gemini 2.5 and Claude 4, never improved them, they're basically AGI already when when they provide reinforcement learning on top of them for specific fields. So I'm sitting there this morning and I'm trying to I'm getting my kids ready for school and I take them to school in the mornings. And so I'm drinking my cup of coffee and I'm thinking about this. And then I'm like, I gotta try and put this in context for people when Mike and I talk later today. So I go into Google Deep Research. So if you've never used Google Deep Research, we talk about it quite often. do it. I every time I give a talk now, I say this is your homework assignment, because anytime I say who's done a deep research project, you usually get like 5% of the room raises their hands. So this is your research. This is your homework assignment from this podcast if you haven't used deep research yet. So I go in and I give Google Deep Research the following prompt. I have a theory that today's most advanced AI models could already be considered AGI if they are post-trained on data specific to jobs and professions. I'm assuming a definition for AGI of AI systems that can perform at or above the level of an average human who would otherwise do the work. The motivating factor for developers and entrepreneurs to build these AGI-like solutions could be the total addressable market of the salaries in a given profession. Can you run a research project looking at the total addressable market, or TAM, by estimated total salaries across top professions in the United States? So that is the prompt. It then gives me a research plan. The research plan, so again, if you haven't used deep research, this is really important for you to understand. It's now all the AI from here on out. I don't do anything. It says, my goal is to try and figure out which professions and industries entrepreneurs and venture capitalists will go at disrupting first, thereby figuring out where the greatest potential job displacement is in the coming years. It then builds an 8-step research plan, which is, I don't know, eyeball this, about 300 words, 300 to 400 words. It's going to identify official U.S. government sources, such as the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. It's going to, for each profession, identify the previous step, gather the most relevant available data. It's then going to calculate estimated total addressable market. For professions with the highest TAM, it's going to research primary tasks and responsibilities. Then it's going to analyze and evaluate susceptibility to high TAM professions. So it builds this whole plan, and then it pops up and is like, we good? Like, you want me to go? You want to edit it? So I just hit start research, and then I took the kids to school. I came back 20 minutes later. It was done. So I now had a 40-page report with 90 citations written for me, including a table with the top 30 U.S. professions ranked by their total estimated annual salary, or TAM, based on May 2023 Bureau of Labor Statistics data. This ranking highlights the professions that represent the largest pools, yada, yada, yada. So it goes through and does this entire analysis, which is, it's not shocking because I've done deep research before. Like, I know what it is capable of, but the quality is crazy. And then I'm going to read the conclusion to you because I want to call out a couple of really key things here. One, the research seems really good. Like, I think this is valid. I need to verify the data, but I'll share a lot of this data as soon as I can verify it's all accurate. It sure seemed on initial glance really, really good and well cited. The conclusion. Now, keep in mind, again, if you haven't used these tools, this is an AI writing this. So if you're still in denial about the quality of AI writing, I didn't edit this. The journey towards the user-defined AGI-like capabilities is not a monolithic event, but rather an incremental profession by profession and often task by task evolution. While AI excels at data processing, pattern recognition, and automating routine cognitive and even some physical tasks, uniquely human attributes such as deep critical thinking in novel situations, complex strategic judgment, genuine empathy, I boldface that, I'm going to come back to that in a second, and sophisticated interpersonal negotiation remain largely beyond the grasp of current AI. Consequently, in many fields, AI's immediate role will be powerfully augmentative, freeing human professionals from repetitive and data-driven labor to concentrate on these higher order skills. Now, genuine empathy, Mike, before I continue on with this conclusion, the fact that it knows AI can simulate empathy, but that only humans have genuine empathy, that was one that I just stopped in my tracks. And I was like, well, that's fascinating. Because we've talked about that before, where machines can't be empathetic. They don't feel anything,
Right.
but they can simulate feeling things, and it can be very convincing. So the fact that the machine itself identified, okay, so it says, nevertheless, the dual imperative of this technology wave is undeniable. For entrepreneurs and venture capitalists, the landscape is rich with opportunities to innovate, create value, and redefine industries by leveraging AI to tackle high TAM challenges. The potential for significant returns is substantial for those who can successfully navigate the technological, ethical, and regulatory complexities. Simultaneously, the societal implications, particularly concerning job displacement and the evolving nature of work, are profound. While new roles centered around AI will emerge and many existing roles will transform, the transition will require proactive strategies for workforce adaptation, reskilling, and education. The challenge is not merely to replace human labor, but to reimagine how humans and AI can collaborate to achieve outcomes previously unattainable. I mean, Mike, you and I write for a living. We've read a lot. If you gave me that, I would think like this is a PhD student that wrote this.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. Easily.
there's nothing in here I would edit. There's nothing I would change factually. It is right in line with how we think about the world. And so then that led me to like, now I'm sitting there like trying to explain to my wife the significance of this. And, she's willfully listening. Like, thank you to her for listening to me think this out loud. Um, and I explained to her, I was like, listen, if I would have needed to do this project prior to 6 months ago, I would have either hired somebody, I would have had to block off time on a weekend to start the project. There's no way I would finish it because I would have to go do all this research myself. I'd have to build the research plan, or do the research, then I have to write the thing. So we're talking about 25 hours probably just for the research, just to go find all this data, organize the data. Then I actually got to write the report. So in essence, it would have never happened. I would have never talked about it on the podcast. Like I wouldn't have had time to do it. The crazy thing though, and I showed Mike this earlier when we were on a call, some of these outputs, that was just the start. Then in deep research, there's a create button. Well, the create button lets you build an infographic. It lets you add Gemini app capabilities to the infographic where you can click like explore buttons. It created a 17-minute audio overview of the research report, the 40-page report. It built a 10-question quiz. It built me a web page, and I was able to build an app with a prompt.
Hmm.
All of this is available. So going back to the quote that we started with, that in the next 2 to 5 years, the future of work just changes. It looks completely different. And to me, it's not like lost on me the irony of using the deep research tool to do a research project on the obsolescence of humans in work. And part of me honestly like struggles to share this because I feel like once I ask the question in the room, how many people have done a deep research project? And 90% of those people raise their hand, even 50%, 20%. The future of work will have changed. Like right now, it's like we have this insane technology that's just sitting before us, and there's so few people that even understand what it's capable of. And then once they even know what it's capable of, to actually like go and do it. But to like look at this stuff and understand it, and then be able to like in your own mind say, oh man, I got 10 ways I could use this right now.
Yep.
And maybe it's 10 projects you just weren't doing. Like I wouldn't have done this, but it's transformative. And I try really, really hard on this show to never hype stuff, to not over exaggerate anything. Like we try and keep it as even keel as possible. Having just been with lots of leaders recently and had these conversations, I just don't understand what the world looks like once everyone else knows how to use these tools
Hmm.
and starts to build their teams knowing what's possible. So yeah. So and then the last thing I'll say here is like we were torn on like what do I do with this, because it's hard to explain this through just like words without like people visualizing this if you've never done the deep research project. So I talked with Kathy and Mike this morning. I was like, should we just like do a free webinar? Like I'll just show people how to do this. So check the show notes. We're gonna hopefully by the time this airs on Tuesday, we'll have a date picked. But I'm just going to do like an AI deep dive and do like a Gemini deep research for beginners. And I'm just going to show you everything I just explained, show you the prompts, show you the outputs, the infographic, the web page. So hopefully that it's helpful for people to start to understand this, because I want people to start not only doing these projects, but start to think about the impact it's going to have on their teams and their people. And until we get to that point where we're on the same page with what's possible, I don't think we're going to be able to build for the future of work and the future of organizational charts. So yeah, check the show notes. AI deep dive coming up on Gemini deep research, and then we're going to be building a whole bunch of this stuff into our academy. But I want to do this for free and show it to as many people as we possibly can, so we can get everybody kind of moving in the same direction here and thinking about the implications together.
Yeah, as someone who saw the outputs you were able to produce and is familiar with these tools, I was still surprised and stunned in a pleasant way. So I'd say don't miss this, even if you are familiar with deep research.